Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back, brothers and sisters and viewers of IQRA TV. I'm really sorry, we just started to get going. We opened the discussion. Amjad Saab just started to give a response to the question that I had set before him, and then we had to go for this break. But never mind. I'm sure Amjad Saab has not forgotten what he was talking about. But in between, we'll be discussing issues around politics and how we, within the Muslim community and the BME community, need to become more sharper, more focused about how we engage with politics and how we make sure that the political structures deliver for us what we actually want. So let's come back to that issue about, what expectations there are of the councils and local government. And obviously, as I say, we are going through some very challenging times. Are we sufficiently robust or au fait with the challenges that local authorities are facing in terms of the service provision that they can provide as opposed to what they were used to provide?
Okay, let me take it from a global perspective in terms of where we are, UK PLC, i.e. the country, and after the second industrial revolution we were the number one, right? Post Second World War, right, we had the migration, there was a pent-up demand across the globe and we maintained that position. Post 1947, the past, what we call now the Commonwealth countries, which are the empire countries, became independent. And when somebody becomes independent, they want to show the world, look, we're just as good as you, or if not better. So, and the key thing here, Banasab, is that those countries who got their independence started on the Industrial Revolution, right, with the new kit. I.e. in terms of factory system, they put new systems in, they put the latest technology in. But unfortunately for Britain, right, the businesses here kept the old machinery, kept the old ways. So you saw in the early 70s the decline of the heavy engineering, the textile industry, right? Then came financial services that we said, well, we want to go into the knowledge economy, but we can't compete here. So what has happened? The wealth of the nation comes from trading, and for you to be trading well, you need to be competitive. So we became uncompetitive in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and in the 21st century at the moment.
Is that because the politicians?
But the point that I'm coming to is about how did we get to a point where we're cutting everything, we haven't got the resources, and at the heart of that is when your own industry can't compete and win global orders, you will not, the exchequer will not have the money, to absolutely spend on it. And then I think the biggest problem then is that you've not actually created an education system. This is where the ecosystem of enterprise that we keep talking about comes in. If you've not actually changed your education system and the expectations of people and got them ready with the skills of where the world is moving in terms of where the future employment is going to be. So our mismatch of policies, government policies, institutional policies for the last 30 decades, I'm afraid, have been absolutely...
But I mean, the two had never really been integrated anyway.
Absolutely
so
not.
You have the politics and the business side never really integrated.
They met, so the big and great, the massive companies lobbied in order to get what they wanted, the planning, all that kind of stuff. They still do that.
I mean, on a macro level, where we're talking about the ordinary citizens. So, the people who want their bins collected, the people who want their elderly people to be looked after. We've now got huge queues, waiting times in the NHS. We have a shortage of doctors and nurses because the public sector is no longer able to fund some of these services. So tomorrow, lots of people are going to be, there'll be hundreds of councillors, for example, or potential people who want to become councillors of Bradford City Council, Leeds City Council, Wakefield, etc. So by Thursday evening or Friday morning, these people are going to be in positions of power, right? Whether they're members of the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, whoever they may be, but some of them, not all of them, will be in a position of power. How do you see those people be able to respond to the needs of the community, bearing in mind what you've just said, that over the years, over 60 decades, 70 decades, or 7 decades, our income generation has been going down and down and down in terms of the revenue that comes into the exchequer.
But there's a crucial mismatch here, right? So our income streams, right, which actually fund our defense, our education, our infrastructure, all that kind of stuff, is now suffering because of that.
Yes.
But the expectations of the ordinary citizen
has been rising.
It's been absolutely. So I sit on the NHS. I'm a non-executive director there, right? So the biggest problem that you will face is the sophistication in terms of what the care is there, but because the and expectations are increasing, you simply have not got the resources to deliver the expectations. So I think, you know, there is another massive issue which I think the viewers will be aware of, is in the West. I can understand in Pakistan, India, China, in the emerging economies, where politicians are seen almost as the people who can only solve your problem. So you're the ultimate heroes who ride on a white horse and a shining armor, right? You know, Imran Khan will come in and solve everything, or somebody else will come in and solve everything. I don't necessarily have a big problem with that, because you need expectations from your leaders. But when you actually put all your eggs in one basket, which is politics, that politics will solve everything, well, then you actually
So what's the alternative?
The alternative is that I, as an individual, actually, I'm in UK, right? You know, we know that the education system is poor, but compared to the world, the third world countries, the emerging, we still have one of the best education systems. We still have some of the, right? So what am I doing as an individual? That's my responsibility, to actually connect with those systems.
Are we saying that people's expectation for the public services to deliver should be lowered?
No, I'm not saying this should be lowered.
Right.
I think what I'm saying is so in terms of diabetes, in terms of those diseases that you can control yourself by the diet that you actually eat, by the lifestyle that you live, right? That is something that you can take charge of. Yeah. And people are beginning to do that.
In terms of health, I totally agree with you. And I think, you know,
and in terms of education, so if the parents are actually engaged with the education system,
I totally agree with you. But in terms of public services that the local government provides, for example, the bin collection, you know, things like that, you know, rec parks and recreation, sports facilities, youth clubs. I mean, I don't know whether I don't think Bradford has got many youth clubs like most local authorities. Alternative venues where young people can go and get engaged in physical activity, you know, where it improves their health. In that sense, where do you see the role of local authorities in the future?
But there is, again, I would stress, if you go to an individual and say, would you pay more rates for your house? Right. Would you pay more taxation? Right. On a personal level, they would say no. Vast majority of the people would say no. But then when you say, do you want your bins collecting every 2 weeks, or do you want them collected every week? They will say, I want it collecting every week, and I want 2 bins instead of 1. Right. So again, the expectations. So I think the biggest problem that we have is that in order to get into power, the politicians actually raise our expectations and say, align their kind of PowerPoints, right, which they say to us, yes, electors will do that, yeah. But I think on that journey of when they get elected, right, how do we actually hold them to account? We say we live in a democracy, right? We only hold them to account when the elections come round the next time.
Every 4 years.
Right,
yes.
4 years.
Yeah.
So how many people attend the council's meetings?
So in your view, I mean, bearing that in mind, we've had people who've been councillors for years, right? So do you think councillors individually and collectively, whichever party they belong to, have in the main failed the Asian, the Muslim community, you know, across the country, because they've not actually, because they followed the manifesto of the party that
no, I mean, you've answered the question. Yeah. Okay.
Rather than
So here again, right? We understand the problem, i.e., what our individual needs are as Muslims. So my needs are that I need you know, mosques near me, I need madrasas near me, I need a safe place where people are not, you know, throwing insults at me. You know, my children are safe when they go to school, when they come back, when we're traveling the streets, we're safe. I want halal food to be available and not to be seen as something that's hateful, right? So we all understand all that. But you see, we then go and because my parents have been voting Labour right since the day one, or somebody's parents have been voting Conservatives, we see it as our duty, right, just to go take that box and go in, right? So examination, rationality, right, critical analysis, or what does this party stand for? What are my needs? And I'll tell you where we failed. So we can't simply say that the councillors have failed. Councillors are but one stakeholders in the society that we live on. So where are the Muslim institutions that think policy through? So a lot of my parents' generation are now in their 90s. They've got a lot of issues regarding old age. It might be Alzheimer's, it might be, you know, they can't get up, they need personal care, right? Then you've got people of my generation and your generation who will be retiring. Who is going to take care of their needs? Then we've got the young people who are really confused about their identity. They don't know where the jobs market is going to be. Islamophobia is up there, right? So where are the institutions, our Islamic institutions, that actually say to the government, look, here is a research paper that we've carried out on health, education, infrastructure, our business needs, our banking needs, right, because we need compliance. But who's doing that?
Well, I agree, but I mean...
but the thing is, you see, once we have those policies, Bana, we know which research policies that we've got. We can then go to the Labour Party and say, look, these are our needs, you are taking our vote for granted.
I mean, organisations like the Muslim, Muslim Council of Britain, MEND and others have produced their own manifestos.
Yeah, but you know, MEND has just come about. I know Sufyan Ismail really well.
I mean, they've come up with their manifestos and say, look, as a Muslim organisation, you know, Sufyan, MEND and the Muslim Council of Britain and the others have all come up with their manifesto, but we are not, the majority of the community is not signed up to it, you know, to say, yeah, we back this. How, I mean, if we want to do what,
let me pick that point.
Yeah, go on.
Right, so we've created these organisations, right? And you know, some people have poured their own personal wealth into it.
Oh, definitely.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, they have.
And you know, when we were running ATL, you know, we were giving our time, intellect, and expertise free of charge. And you know, we're not doing a favour to anybody because we're part of the community. Anything that happens to us, to the community, happens to us. So I'm a Muslim, so if whatever happens to Muslims, I'll be labelled as that, and you know, it affects my lifestyle and affects my sin. So fundamentally, what I'm saying to you is, when we do not take our own responsibility as Muslims, what is my role in delivering our challenges? It's not just the councillors. And my first role is, as a parent, how am I actually joining those institutions and paying my responsible part in that? So the resource, so we have a greater resource in terms of connecting and creating a pressure group. And you know, you started, we live in a democracy, and we've now have Sajid Javed as a Pakistani origin, you know, guy
Muslim Home Secretary,
at the helm Home Office. But let me tell you, right, you know, he is a member of the cabinet of Conservative Party. The Conservative Party has a manifesto. They will deliver those. But if he steps aside that, he will be held to account by the voters, the party, and the conference, and so forth. So the guy has got his hands and his knees, right, shackled to that manifesto. But he's elected to be a Tory guy. So where is that, you know, manifesto for Muslims? Not at the MEND level or the Muslim Council for Britain or the Council for Mosques or the Muslim Women's Council. The institutions are there. Unless and until we, the Muslims as individuals, actually get engaged and play our role and invest. You know, if you've got money, please invest some money in them, right? If you've got expertise, give that expertise at fi sabilillah.
And is that something you think we have lacked over the last 30 or so years, people who become councillors, politicians, whether have, in your opinion, and be honest, you know, have we elected people who had the skills and the knowledge and the competencies to fulfill that responsibility? I know this is a loaded question, but are we just elected people because they have the biggest, you know, families in the area, you know, they belong to the people who are the biggest say within the communities, regardless of whether they have the ability, the competency to do it or not?
Right. I think you're alluding. No, you're alluding to the brotherly system.
Yes, in a way.
In a way, I have absolutely no criticism at all of the brotherly. Is something which is blood related.
Yes.
So you know.
But do we blindly follow somebody?
No. This is where I'm.
Whether they're right or not.
So the Labour Party is a brotherly system. The CBI is a brotherly system, right? The Conservative Party is a brotherly system. But there is a fundamental thing that we've missed actually in the brotherly system. Most of the other institutions that represent similar groups with similar values have adopted a value-based system that's based on meritocracy.
Yeah.
Right.
People of merit.
People of merit. Have they? So what I call in management speak, have they got the EECs, the experience, the knowledge, right, and expertise, right? Now because we haven't got the institutions that are aligned to the popular kind of input, right? We don't have that alignment of meritocracy. Once we get that,
right,
believe me, we will become one of the most effective communities in Europe, if not the world, right? But I think getting to that point is becoming very, very difficult.
I was just going to ask you that because I think my interpretation and my sort of analysis of what's happening is young people are getting disengaged with getting involved in the political arena. Unlike, what happened in the 60s and the 70s and people like you in the 80s, you felt that you had to do something for your fellow brothers and sisters.
Well, Asian Youth Movement, remember when the kids were being bussed out.
Exactly.
Masha Singh, God bless him, he's passed away.
Yeah.
Him, Tariq, myself, and a lot of other people, when we were at university, we were absolutely, fundamentally involved, even though, we never thought that I would become a businessman and they would become, we felt that, the motto was here to stay, here to fight.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So fundamentally we're saying, look, we want to be we want to be stakeholders. And if you're not going to give us that, we will fight. Not violently, but intellectually. We will challenge everything that you're saying. So where is the challenge? Right? So if you created the MCB, right? So I think the other big problem that we've got so many organizations out there, and that is good, in a sense, in a free society, you're going to have so many pizza shops and so many restaurants doing the same thing, and the fittest survive. I think what needs to happen, all these organizations, there needs to be an overarching, organization that takes
a federation.
No, absolutely. So if you look at the communities that are very, very aggressive, very, very kind of effective in doing what they're doing. So if you look at the Jewish Board of Deputies, right, every synagogue sends 2 people, but they don't just say to them, send us 2 people. They say, look, within the Jewish Board of Deputies, these are the core competencies that are missing. If you're going to send 2 representatives, we'd like you to send those people with those core competencies. So if it's marketing, is it, raising charities, stuff, right? Do we do that?
Yes,
absolutely. Now, listen, we do not do that. Right? Imagine, people like me and you who've been in business, we've got a lot of skills. There are people out there who are accountants, who are all sorts of people, right? Imagine if you put them together.
We're now going to go for a break. Actually, you've come to absolutely the right point here. Again, unfortunately, as the discussion really gets into an interesting subject, we have to go for a break. Don't go away. Make yourself a cup of tea or whatever it is, but come back, stay with us. We're now really getting into the meat of the discussion and the debate. And see you soon, inshallah, after this break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.